Well, hey, we are going to talk about choosing evidence today for our essays that we're writing. And we are using evidence because we want to make sure that our opinions are stronger. So we are going to look into 5 different types of evidence that we can use to support our arguments. Okay. The first type of evidence is a factor or statistic. So what this looks like um, in this scenario would be to prove college graduates earn more money. I might include something like a 2014 study by the Economic Policy Institute estimated that people with four-year college degrees earn 98% more per hour than those who did not finish college. So that's a factor statistic that I'm looking to include. I might also use a story or an antidote. And so maybe like to prove a gap year can help you find the right career path. I might take somebody, in this example, Colleen Conroy took a gap year and discovered her true passion was for writing, not geology. So she switched her major and had a successful academic year. And so I'm actually telling somebody's story who's had experience with whatever the topic is that I am arguing. An example, it's a little bit different because it's not actually a personal story. It's just kind of one of those almost what ifs. In this case, to prove a college degree increases your job options, I might provide an example. To become a web designer, real estate agent, or chef, you don't have to have a college degree, but having a degree won't prevent you from getting any of those jobs. On the other hand, you can't become a teacher, an accountant, a doctor, or an engineer without a degree. So I'm just giving very generalized example, nothing specific to any one person. I might also choose to use a quote, whether that's from an expert or what we call a non-expert, just your average person. And maybe to prove that college allows students to try different career paths until they find they're happy with. I might actually quote a student who has been to college. Now, as a junior, I'm happier than ever. I'm stimulated by my academic work and enthusiastic about my growth as a writer. So I would actually have interviewed that person. The final is a scenario, a what if. This is similar to an example, but gives a little bit more specifics. So in this situation, proving it's possible to save good money during a gap year, I would offer this like fake scenario. So suppose you got a 40-hour per week job that paid $10 per hour. Over the course of 1 year, that's a total of $19,200. If you could save half, $9,600, that could pay for a year of in-state tuition at many public four-year colleges. So that's just kind of a very broad what if situation, but a little bit more specific than an example. But how do we know which evidence to choose when we're looking at all the articles that we have in front of us for our argumentative essay? And there are a couple of hints and reminders. So we want to pick evidence that's relevant. It supports our point, it supports our argument and what we're trying to say. There is lots of evidence that might be about what you're writing about, but might not necessarily be relevant to your topic. So maybe you are trying to get your parents to let you stay out past curfew, and so you need to argue that you're responsible and they can trust you, okay? Well, I might tell them, well, I walk the dog anytime you ask me to, so obviously I can be trusted, right? But I might also say, oh, you've left me home on my own a few times and everything went fine, and that proves I'm trustworthy. Well, option one isn't really relevant to this situation because it doesn't have to do with unsupervised responsibility, making good choices when you're not being watched, right? Option two is relevant in that you've been left alone before, and so you can be trusted to make a good decision in that case. One of the other things you need to consider when choosing evidence is it sufficient? So is there enough of it? So using this argument, students will perform better academically if they wake up later. Okay, this is, even in Chesterfield, they've discussed this issue because they had an earlier school start time. So option one, I can personally focus much better in my later classes. Well, that's great, and that may be true for you, but you are one of many. So a better, more sufficient option would be to look for statistics. So a Northwestern University study of over 2,000 students showed that student test scores rose by 10% in schools that moved to the later school time. So now I'm looking at a population of 2,000 students, not just you, and that is far more sufficient. Third thing to consider is whether or not your evidence is credible. So is it reliable and is it mostly unbiased? A lot of things contain bias of some sort, but is it mostly unbiased? Okay, so we've talked about this argument before, arguing that local food is healthier. So option one, I might have a local association of farmers come in and they might share with us that there's a higher vitamin content in their locally grown vegetables than there are in the ones that are shipped to store. And they might be right about that. Option two looks at the USDA reporting that locally grown vegetables have a higher vitamin content. Okay, exact same information, but one is a locally based group of farmers, and they are definitely going to be more biased because they want you to buy their product. Whereas the US Department of Agriculture is unbiased, they don't necessarily have anything to do with the farmers in your particular area. Okay, so that makes them a little bit more credible because they're unbiased. All right, so what do you need to do now? So by the end of the block on Thursday, you need to get back from us or from me your essay planner that you turned in the other day where you had done your thesis statement and your points. And then you need to start filling in evidence that you have found in those articles. Okay, you each have like 4 articles available to you for your topic. So I want you to pull evidence, but I need you to make sure that it is relevant, that is sufficient, and that it is credible. And if you can't find evidence that meets those 3 points, you probably need to change whatever claim that you're arguing is because we can't really back it up otherwise. Okay, when you're done with that, go ahead and turn it in to make sure you get the credit for having that work completed. And that will be where I need you to be by the end of the block again on Thursday. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.